Today's lecture is next in the series on Tom Jones by Henry Fielding, and this is lecture 5, and the title of this lecture is Themes and Concerns in Tom Jones. We've already discussed some general aspects on this novel, and today we'll be talking mainly about the text as we read it, as we write on, as we analyze. The first point that I make regarding themes and concerns in Tom Jones is that here we would be discussing those issues, those interests that the writer had in mind or may have had in mind, so that he would write about something specific and concrete. And he might have, in the 18th century, when he wrote, some kind of a purpose and intent to communicate to the readers his view, his interests and his stresses, his emphases. And therefore, I'll be taking up a few things one by one. And the first thing that I say about themes and concerns in Tom Jones is that more than just a novelist, Fielding is a social commentator and a historical analyst. Now, this is very important. Who is a social commentator? The one who understands the society of one's time and then picks up certain issues, so certain points to comment on it. And that he does so not merely to talk about that issue, but about society as a whole. That's why he's called a social commentator. And historical analyst is, as you know, that there is a difference between commentator and analyst. So far as commentator is concerned, you just express your opinion on a particular aspect of life. You comment on it, you find it good or bad, acceptable or unacceptable, or just to welcome or to reject. That's what a commentator does all the time. So far as historical analyst is concerned, the adequate word is analyst. Somebody analyzes, somebody splits a whole thing into parts, discusses each part separately, and finally brings them back together so that one can see the thing in its entirety. That is what an analyst does. Historical analyst is a slightly more important category, because then the analyst is not considering only the present, the existing question, but such questions that might have occurred earlier in history. And then, they were resolved or they were left, for being too difficult to be resolved, whatever. And that people later on learned about those experiences, and they are a part of now the memory of society. And when somebody analyzes a thing again in one's own time, then one also goes into the history of how this issue was tackled by people in the previous centuries, previous generations. So I hope you have understood the meaning of social commentator and historical analyst, and you also have an awareness of a difference between the two. We might keep in mind Fielding's prefatory comments prefatory comments that are there in the chapters, and they are kind of digressions while discussing this novel. You would have read this novel, I'm assuming, and that when you would have noticed that each chapter starts with a kind of comment, a long comment. The comment can go into 2 pages, it can go into more than 2 pages, and there the writer is expressing one's opinion. What is the relevance of this kind of prefatory comment? Prefatory from preface, that you write first a preface and then you give the story, give the narrative. Later on, people stopped doing it, or they started couching this in a different form, did it but did not make points as clearly and as openly as Henry Fielding did. But then, what is the purpose of these prefaces? I would say that if you wear your ideas on the sleeve, here you tell your intent very clearly to the audience that this is what you mean by one or the other, part of reality. And after that you tell the story, then you as a reader know both about the opinion of something and the actual experience or the actual thing that happened in society. I believe that even though this is the initial part of the growth of the novel, this is still very important, because if you don't have a preface, then you have a preface somewhere in your own mind as a reader. You have read another book where similar situations were depicted, and you can combine them with this. So in any case, there is always an idea of comparative, thing there, and that comparative thing is formalized in this novel. So you can see the confidence with which Henry Fielding is telling you his opinion, and then he's telling something that is either for or against that opinion. So that there is a sense of discrimination, there is a sense of difference between what you earlier thought and what you thought now, or what the author thought himself, and then he saw something which did not tally with what he said. That is the purpose of a prefatory comment, and this novel is going to use this kind of a comment all the time at length. He will tell you how the same thing can be discussed in 2 or 3 different ways. The other point that I make here, in continuation with this, is about a character who is the heart and soul of this novel. Even though the novel is named after Tom Jones, and it is his life that all the time you will be considering as you read the novel, as you proceed with the descriptions, you should know that in the novel there is a character who seems to be all-knowing. That's why he is all-worthy. He is a person who is to be respected. He is the high and mighty of this world that this novel has captured, and his name likewise is Mr. Allworthy. I call him the reigning deity of the novel, so to say. It's the reigning deity. Whenever you have a problem in that world, if you live in that world, then you approach him for help, and this person will never disappoint you. Will never say no to helping you, and his name is Mr. Allworthy. He's middle-aged, he's well-meaning, he's a friendly sort, and he can also rightly, wisely guide you. So he is the reigning deity of the novel and is a repository of wisdom. He will not talk nonsense. He will not crack jokes with you. He will not unnecessarily waste words. And you will also know apart from Mr. Allworthy, you will know about Tom Jones. Who is Tom Jones? An eager, though inconsistent learner. He is a young man. He wants to know. He doesn't know much. He's an innocent soul, a young man, lusty, very, very strong physically, handsome, and he wants to know. But he is inconsistent learner. He will learn, but then he has other faults and flaws which all human beings have. He can easily be beguiled. He can be taken for a ride. Somebody can tell him something wrong, and then this person will believe that person to be right and will follow him. And later on, when he learns that the thing that was told to him was something wrong and that had to be kept away, then of course he would learn and will not repeat that mistake, or may repeat the mistake. You never know. After all, it's human to be led in the wrong direction, not just once, but twice or thrice. So whatever the case, you have these 2 characters and they loom large in the novel. One is Mr. Allworthy and the other is Tom Jones. And these characters coexist, and you learn from each other. Teaching and learning are indicators, indicators of issues raised in the novel. This is true. In fact, one can say that this novel is about teaching and learning. There are people who teach and there are people who learn. And those who teach are not all good. Mr. Allworthy is good, but there might be others. There might be a preacher. There is, in fact, a preacher in the novel. He preaches something just, to say, just to show off that he's a good person. But actually, he in fact does all those things which he criticizes in his teaching. And the pupil, the student, the learner is Tom Jones. So you say you have this kind of education. This happens in all educations. This novel is about education, and here teaching and learning both are involved. And you have a student in the novel, that is Tom Jones, and he is going to be in touch with one or the other person, who is knowledgeable or not knowledgeable, who is wise or not wise, who is good or who is bad, who is virtuous or evil. Whatever the case, the person is there, he will tell you, and then you as Tom Jones would learn from him or her. I say her because there are a large number of women in the novel who also approach Tom Jones for all kinds of things. They want to enjoy his company because he's very handsome, and they want to be with him. And this person doesn't know whether to accept or reject their offers. So that kind of interest is created by the writer in the context of Tom Jones being an innocent soul. But when he has been duped, beguiled, or misled, even by women or men, in that case, he would learn about life, and he will not. He will be wary of meeting these people again in life. But then he actually is the human soul caught in the frame of good and evil in the world. So he symbolizes that, and that 18th century required some kind of education process to be made available to the readers, to the people who wanted to know, and therefore it can easily be called a novel of education. Whose education? Tom Jones' education. If in the exam this question is asked, whether you agree or not agree that this novel is of education, then you know what to say. The third point that I make about this discussion is that tradition and power are shown as negative aspects of social life. Now I'll explain what is tradition. Tradition is the traditional knowledge. In society, your family will tell you, this is the tradition that the previous generation followed, and therefore you should also follow it. That's a strange logic. If the previous generation followed something, then why should you be compelled to follow the same tradition? Because now is different from yesterday. And today there are new problems, but then the seniors who followed that tradition earlier, they will always impose on you that thing which was done yesterday, or 10 years ago, 20 years ago. In fact, tradition is writ in the very minds of people. And some traditions, have existed for the last, not just hundreds of thousands of years. And those traditions are dead and gone, but they remain actually in the realm of culture. And those traditions in culture that is present today, they come in the way of your understanding and your growth. So a knowledge that was learned 1,000 years ago is irrelevant today or less relevant today because new challenges and new problems have cropped up and they require new answers. So in that sense, tradition is something that is to be critically examined and rejected if it is found wrong. And power. What is the role of power in life? You and I, if we are powerful, then we will not know the role because we enjoy the power. But suppose there is a child, and the child is surrounded by parents, and parents are powerful, not just mentally, but also physically. So if the child doesn't agree with the parents, then the child can be beaten up, can be punished. That's the very crudest example of power. But if you go out in the open and on the road there are people who are bad, who want to rob you of your money, and there's nobody to check them, then you know what exactly power means. Power is wrong again. Because in society and in life, what you require is not power, but what you require is friendship. You require support, you require understanding, you require sympathy. And if a person is powerful, then he or she will not show any sympathy towards you. He would just use his or her power in order to control your ideas. Therefore, in the 18th century, this is supposed to be taken very seriously, and people are to be told that you have to shun tradition and you have to shun also power. In the case of Tom Jones, tradition is something that he doesn't understand. So therefore, he will just accept it if he is given the idea. But so far as power is concerned, social power he may not have. He doesn't have a home. He doesn't have actual parents. There are foster parents but there are no actual parents. So he doesn't have that power. But there is one power that he has, and that power is physical power. He is a strong, able-bodied person, and on the road, if somebody tries to take liberties with him, then Tom Jones can, physically speaking, teach that person a lesson. So this is the kind of character that you have before you, and these two traits of social behavior are shown as negative. And consider the portrayal of Squire Western, Sophia's father. I give this example and give it because Sophia is a young, attractive, intelligent, good-hearted girl. She's a young woman. She must be about 20, and she wants to search for answers for the question that she's sharing in the world outside. But her father, Squire Western, says, no, do not go out. And if you go out, you tell me where you're going. And if I don't like the person to whom you are going, and you might meet him, therefore, I'll lock you up in the house. It's that kind of a father who will control completely the body and the mind of his daughter. And Sophia is a person who would like to know about that world because she's curious. Therefore, there's going to be a tussle in the novel between the father and the daughter. Squire Western, let me get back to the other thing. Squire Western in the novel supports a tradition, and he enjoys a power. And this power and tradition is to be shunned by, is to be resisted by his own daughter, Sophia, who wants to learn things by herself and then go her own way. So just see that the novel is finally emerging as a kind of conflict between the center of power and the center of wishes, the center of desires, the center of personal dynamism and opinion. And that, gives a kind of life a sense of life to the novel. The growth of Tom as a character goes hand in hand with the evolution of a dynamic attitude. Keep this in mind. In this kind of a difficult situation, Tom Jones has to, as I said even earlier, get his education, and one has to really think that thing in mind that Tom Jones is going to get educated more and more and be a part of this world at his own level. Then in the novel, the woman question is presented in its diversity. There are a large number of women in the novel, and these women are on the periphery in English life at that time. They do not have any jobs. They do not have ownership of any property. They have no money with themselves. They are under the control of their fathers. And if they are outside on the road, then they are at the receiving end of stares and attacks by the males. And what do these women do in the 18th century to survive? Anyway, the question is answered in so many different ways because women come from different parts of society. There are people from the high society, from higher families. There are people from the middle classes. There are also people from the lower classes. There are a large number of women in the novel and also in England who come from the servant classes. In the bigger home, aristocratic home, you have an entire battalion of servants, and they have their children. And some of the children are women. And those women are all the time exposed to threats and dangers from everybody inside the family and outside the family. So how do these women survive? So this is a question, and this is treated at length because, as I told you, that even Tom Jones himself doesn't have a proper legitimate parentage. So he is also a weak person socially. And then he's going to be in the category of these women who are children of the servants. And therefore, these women might, like to meet Tom Jones, might like to enjoy his company. Some of them, might even think of, satisfying their desires physically in his company and all those things, which is wrong, which is supposed to be immoral by the Christian principle. But then Christianity may not be observed in all cases. Tom Jones, the novel, and Henry Fielding, the novelist, are actually dealing with the idea of difficulties in society, and those difficulties take this particular form that women are sought to be controlled and they resist. This theme is overarching in the novel. I say overarching because this is covering all aspects of life. It's not that they are just in one situation. In a large number of situations, this particular aspect of controlling desires and emotions will occur, and therefore I call it overarching. And it is dealt with at length. The wooing of Bridget Allworthy. Now think of a woman. There is a woman called Bridget Allworthy. Allworthy suggests that she is the relative of Allworthy, Squire Mr. Allworthy. And in fact, she is his sister. And she is a widow, and she comes from the upper classes. So she is a target of male attention from all sides. Why? Because she belongs to the upper classes. She might have some property of her own, and she has some kind of a station in life. So people want to woo her. And wooing means that they'll marry her, and if they marry, then they'll be marrying, a higher station in life, a woman from higher station in life, and they'll become big just by marrying her. So wooing then, and she knows wooing for what purpose, and therefore she wants to avoid, and she also knows how to avoid. A woman who is all the time surrounded by pressures also becomes intelligent and clever, and she knows how to handle people, who have those intentions of taking advantage with her. So Bridget Allworthy is that kind of a person, surrounded by wooers, and she has a number of men in her circle, and she is on her side thwarting all such moves with discreetness. Discreetness is a weapon. A woman can be discreet. She may not clearly say no to anything, but she understands how she has to behave, how to avoid, how to get away quietly. So a woman can use her mind and her intelligence. So imagine that in the 18th century, there is a writer who is telling you that the power lies not only in your money or in your other facilities, it also lies in your mind. Mental power is very important. Sometimes with mental power, you can defeat the strongest of enemies. And women do it all the time in the 18th century in England. And the weapon is not a sword. The weapon is not a gun. The weapon is discreetness. So discreetness as a weapon is one example in the case of Bridget Allworthy. And she doesn't marry till the end because she doesn't like marrying any of the people who woo her. They have their intentions in the wrong side, on the wrong side of their personality. All this is borne out by the authorial comment. Authorial comment is very important. You see, you are not left to the devices of your own mind. Sometimes, if the author doesn't tell you what is wrong and right, and gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want and learn from that, then a lot of harm can happen to you. So the role of the author in the novel and in the world that the novelist depicts is to warn you against dangers. So authorial comment, what is the authorial comment? Let's read it. It is, so discreet was she, Bridget, in her conduct, that her prudence was much on the guard, and if she had all the snares to apprehend, which were laid for her whole sex. Now this is the question of women at that time. There are lots of snares, lots of nets, lots of plannings, lots of strategies that are planned by men in order to catch her and to take advantage of her. And that is true not only about Bridget, that is true about the entire set of women, the very sex, the sex of the woman, that all womanhood actually is caught in some kind of web, and there are people who want to take advantage of her. So the writer is that way on the side of women, and this is one of the important concerns of the novel. How can one imagine a woman succeed in face of the snares that have been set to catch her? And it's a great novel for that reason also. That the author is not making a distinction between men and women. In fact, he is all the time talking on the side of the women and wants to see them as powerful, see them as intelligent, see them as looking after their own interests in such a manner that nobody can take advantage of them. Exposure of hypocrisy in society through the bold depiction of characters such as Molly Seagram and Mrs. Waters. Now, these two women, they have been depicted at length in the novel. And they are always told that they have to be of good conduct, they have to follow virtue. But the people who are saying that they should be virtuous in their life. Those people are after them otherwise. They want to corrupt her. They want to enjoy her the company of these people. And with that, they will take advantage of their superior position in society. But Molly would sometimes, give in to their charms, because then that the writer will prove that this person who took advantage of her body, this person was preaching from the top that actually he was a nice person and that he was supposed to tell people to follow good ways, but in his behavior he was totally different. So this social hypocrisy, that you say one thing and do its opposite, this is shown in the novel in the practice of the men who take advantage of women like Molly and Mrs. Waters. But what actually happens is that in spite of the fact that these women are taken advantage of, they tell the reader and they tell the world around them that they are actually exposing hypocrisy of these men. The people hypocritically approach them, hypocritically they tell them the good things, but actually they want them to pursue the ideas of desire. So you have these characters, you can call them corrupt, others can call them corrupt, but the writer calls them actual characters who will be used by the writer to prove that the society as a whole is hypocritical. So with me, and who are hypocritical in society? Those who preach virtue. And who preaches virtue? The people who are orthodox, people who are religious, people who are of higher authority. They are hypocritical. And if they are hypocritical, then the ordinary masses are in any case exploited. And that is what the writer wants to warn you against. Then Molly Seagrim symbolizes raw power and animalism. Women, you do not teach them, you don't let them go to school, you do not expose them to higher ideas, then they live at the level of the body. And they are that way very dynamic in their behavior. Therefore, they have that kind of animalist instinct. You can call it the sexual instinct. Mrs. Waters has the same. But then these things have to be seen in the context of the 18th century morals. So 18th century morality tells these women as fallen women, tell these women as corrupt women. But actually, the writer is using these women to understand the very nature of hypocrisy that exists in society at the time. The point of the meek women, really actually at the same time, in one of the earlier discussions I said that Fielding started writing his novels after reading the novels of his contemporary, whose name was Richardson. Richardson was showing women as meek, women as innocent, women as all the time obeying the dictates of men. And this writer, Henry Fielding, was angry. How do you show women only as weak and obedient? Show them as aggressive. And therefore, these aggressive women like Molly Seagrim and Mrs. Waters, they are answers to the women depicted by his contemporary called Richardson. So this point also is to be kept in mind. A variant of female behavior carrying insincerity and degradation is Lady Bellaston. Now this is the last example I give. The example of a woman who is high and mighty, who is from a rich family. She lives in London, and we have reached the end of the novel, and then we meet Lady Bellaston, and she has a look at, she looks at Tom Jones, who has also reached there, and she is attracted towards him, and she also knows that Tom Jones now, at the end of the novel, has fallen in love with Sophia, who was the daughter of Western, and who was following him up to London. And Lady Bellaston becomes jealous of Sophia, and she wants that Tom should actually spend his time with her and not with Sophia. So you can see that women are shown as having some kind of discrimination, even at that level of fighting with one another. In all aspects of social behavior in the novel, we discern, therefore, a rejection of both patriarchal and Christian norms. Christianity is hypocritical, so is patriarchy. Patriarchy is violently anti-women also. And these ideas today might appear normal, But in the 18th century, if somebody expressed these ideas, then that person caused raising of eyebrows. And if you raise eyebrows in society, then really you catch the attention of the readers, and then people start mulling over, thinking about the things that you are raising, and some may disagree, others may agree, and that in fact is the purpose of writing like Tom Jones, the novel that we are discussing. With the last point I finish, finally the novel aims to critique orthodoxy and rigidity and refers strongly and consistently to what Richardson's novels at that time represented. And I would have told you that this is a novel where the thematic concerns are of fighting against patriarchy, fighting against religion of the wrong kind, the hypocritical kind, and that women and men both come forward to reject them. Women reject it through their behavior, and Tom Jones rejects it through his acquisition of knowledge. So I hope you have understood the basic argument of this particular discussion, that it's a novel that is very sharply critical of society and is quite sympathetic to the cause of women through the depiction of Tom Jones. Thank you.